these things that make you think, I never thought about that.
So what he kind of does is, my favorite book about the art of comedy is Born Standing Up by Steve Martin. Steve Martin's my favorite.
Who is he?
Who's Steve Martin? Yeah.
No, just joking.
And one of the things Steve Martin talks a lot about in his book, I forget if he came up with it or someone passed it down to him, but he talks about in the book is, Steve Martin was a philosophy major in college, and he took a lot of classes in the art of logic and the science behind logic. And he could have he was thinking about trying to get go to a PhD program in philosophy. He was really good at, really talented, had the mindset for it. And one of the things that he noticed with a joke is that, the common pattern is A plus B equals C, right? And is just how kind of we, how logic works. You make point one and then point two leads to the conclusion. And if you break down that Stephen Wright joke right there, I worked at the fire hydrant factory. No one could park there, right? So it's just a play on the logic right there.
Right.
Because it makes you think, why can't you park there? Oh, wait, you're not allowed to park in front of fire hydrant. It's just a little twist on how logic unfolds.
Right.
And that's a very big part of it. And another thing in the Steve Martin book that he talks about is the what a joke is essentially is the setup builds tension, and the punchline is the release of that tension. It's the cathartic release of that tension. So if that setup is very, very small. It's a very slight.
But Hitchcock did that with horror. That exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's art.
But nobody was ever laughing during a Hitchcock movie. So
because it's a different intended art form.
Okay.
No one's laughing at. Hitchcock is there to terrorize you and to create horror. He's there to make you have vertigo. He's there to make you wonder about the guy in the window.
I think there's a fine line between comedy and terror at times. Same thing, love and hate. I think they're both people can get so scared they laugh.
There
which
are
is weird.
So many comics who are obsessed with horror movies. I'm not much of a horror movie guy, but every comic so many comics I know have horror movie nights and all of these things, and it's the same kind of way. I think a lot of it's just kind of the built-in absurdity that can provide. Because if you think about a situation that's real life scary, there's always an absurd kind of moment with it. Even if you get into a car accident, it's kind of this just ridiculous. I just got into a car accident. How did that happen? This is absurd. And terror and comedy, it's the same way, because a lot of comedies, obviously, from just being in an absurd situation that should not be there, Well, it's Seinfeld is just absurd situations.
Oh, after stacked on each other. And you've got, I think Carol Burnett and Mark Twain, I believe Mark Twain said it first, was tragedy plus time equals comedy.
Exactly.
And that's a formula. It kind of works.
Yeah.
And Mel Brooks, when he did the 1,000-Year-Old Man skit,
I don't know
that he always did.
I don't know.
It's this classic Mel Brooks, and it's just him and Carl Reiner interviewing him, and I'm dating myself. But he's talking about perspective, and he says tragedy and comedy. They're talking about that formula, and he says tragedy is when I cut my finger. Comedy is when you fall into an open sewer and die,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's, it's just a what? What did that happen kind of thing? And I completely agree with that. And it's also so many comics that are kind of tragic figures too. Even on my level of local level comedy,
there's a darkness to a good comet. And you don't have any darkness.
I do a good job of hiding my internal darkness. I've had some dark periods and everything.
Well, other than going into toy stores and bending all the little license plates to say Chris. Or whatever.
Well, no, not that. Yeah. No, but I battle with depression. But I have it. I know how to manage it and live my life. But I know a lot of comics. My brother has an HBO special out that's just all about his suicide attempts when he was 22.
But are there? I don't think there are any comics, and I don't know, that are just completely normal, because I think you can't be.
No,
it's an art. It's a creative
but
thing.
It's like, that's the thing, though. It's like also with like I kind of think like I kind of think actually like I consider myself to be one of the more normal comics in, you know, at least in Philadelphia, and it's because I have you know, like a really, you know.
Does that make you feel sad for comedy or better for humanity?
No, I mean, it makes me proud of the work I've put into myself,
right,
to feel that way about myself. You know, like I have like a good career. Like I really like my career. I love, you know, like I love my wife. I love my dog. You know, I'm getting, you know, on top of comedy, I'm getting my MBA. So it's like a lot of.
Well, you're addicted to
school.
Academia.
I love being in school more than comedy. Like I love being in school. But they match up well. They match up very, very well for me. I take a lot.
They're both kind of bubbles.
They're both performances.
Huh.
Professors are just performance artists who know a lot about especially individualized. The funniest people I know in my life have all been my favorite professors. They've all been the funniest people that just know how to naturally make someone laugh without thinking about it, without putting in any, how do I make someone laugh? They're just funny people. The one thread behind funny people, if they're comedians or not comedians who just happen to be funny, is you really have to be bright. Like you really have to have, you know, like maybe
you gotta be quick too.
You gotta be quick. You don't necessarily need to have like a high, like bursting IQ, but you can have like a really strong emotional intelligence, right? I mean, there's all kinds of intelligences you have. But I think like my favorite professors I've had have all just been great performers, just really great entertainers. My history professor, who I had like 5 or 6 times, is on the short list. Like he could be a comedian. Like he could just get up and do a lecture about late 19th century U.S. history, and it would bring the house down at a comedy club.
But see, it's like when you tell somebody, I don't know that that's definitely true, because you can have all the components but not be able to pull it off and engage it when somebody says, be funny.
Believe me,
that's got to be the worst thing to hear. So you're a funny guy. Tell me something funny.
Oh yeah, I mean you get that. You know, you get that and everything. It's
and you love comedy, you love academia, but you're not. You described it out there as your brother is married to comedy, is the way I see it.
Job.
And you're having a sweet affair with comedy.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that.
Just in case his wife is listening, we're talking about comedy.
Yeah. No, he's, you know, like there's a difference between a professional comedian and a hobbyist. And coming up.
But you're more than a hobbyist.
No, I'm a hobbyist. I call myself a semi-pro comic in that, like, I'm at the point where I can get paid, but not nearly enough to make it.
Right.
You know, I'm not paying my bills on this, you know, like I did a show over the weekend and got like $50, which is like, I wasn't expecting to get any
But if
money.
you get $1, you're a professional.
Yeah. So I mean, so, you know, like I'm at the point where I can get paid.
But you like living indoors, take your dog to the vet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to do it full time, you know, like but it's like.
Because it would take the fun out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely would take the fun out of it. And, like I said outside before, is it can get really frustrating. There's always like kind of like, you know, like it can be frustrating. If I was in a sketch comedy group for a few years, for like 2 years, and it was right when I started, and I stopped performing comedy a little bit after that, just because I had to work with 5 other people, however many people were in the group. And it was just such a dysfunctional group after a while that it's just like, I don't want to do this. Like, it's just like, I'm just going to walk away from this. It's not fun. So then, you know, it's like, it's not fun. I don't like doing this. I'm going to go and take a class, or I'm going to go and just, you know, I'm interested in, you know, like I'm interested in this, you know, kind of part of like history or business or econ that, you know, like those are kind of my academic interests, right? And just like I'm gonna go read a whole bunch of books about like the history of the Federal Reserve now, or like something like that, you know.
So your academia is the opposite of funny.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love boring things. I am a nerd. Like I'm a nerd. Like I've always been the nerdy kid. I've been.
So you don't cross the lines between the two because you don't get up and tell Federal Reserve jokes, do you?
Well, now I do as financial guru Gregg Gethard.
That's right. Financial guru.
That's my character. Yeah. I found a way to kind of combine, but that's not really finance. It's more like I'm spoofing like scam artists.
Well, and I watched that. I looked at. There were a couple of people that I reached out to about coming on to talk about comedy, and I looked at their videos, and yours was the only one that I looked all the way through it because it was like I was trying to force myself. Bad comedy, and comedy is a taste. It's absolutely a taste, but it's like eating a bad meal. It's like you're just shoving it in, and you're like, I'm not enjoying. But what I found about the financial guru one was that it was funnier to me because it wasn't. It was just a slight spoof. It was just a slight, like with your exaggeration of it, I started to notice the patterns with say everything 3 times and all these patterns.
Rule 3.
And it was all these things that they do in all these little infomercial things that you were spoofing, you know?
Yeah, with that video is, how it came together is, why it came together is I did, the show I talked about in April was called, Money Talks with financial guru Gregg Gethard, which was it's my fake seminar. It's a fake financial education seminar. And I've been going to open mics and getting on like book shows, which are actual shows, and trying out different jokes and different parts of the character and different kind of bits to assemble for a one-man show, which I did in April, and then I did a second one in May. And along the way, like a lot of everyone else who's in the video is a comic who I'm friends with, who've seen the act and they all get the act. And my friend Kevin directed it. He directed it, and him and his team edited it together. And he's just like this hyper talented director. And he knows, like, as soon as I told him what I wanted, like late night infomercial, like a Susan
he
Orman,
nailed it. He nailed it.
He knew he's like, oh, I know exactly what you want to do. I get it. Perfect. And my friends came in, and they all came in prepared with material that I just kind of talked over with them. I
will give him a compliment right here.
Yeah.
He nailed it so well that when I watched it, I thought it was 4:30 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. He's so talented. And the one thing that I wanted more than anything from my show is for him to get get hired full time to do that. It is ridiculous how talented he is. And I've done a few other videos with him and helped him out with his projects. Like he's directed a few music videos. He's made this New Age Muppets kind of show. It's a Muppet type of show, but for today, and it's incredible. He's just the most talented. He's probably the most talented person I know. And it's really great it's really great. That video, that I think what I liked the most about it is that it made me realize that I work with a lot of really talented people.
Right.
And I am very lucky to work with all those talented people who also understand what I'm doing.
Before we go to the after show, why do you think comedy is important?
Comedy is important just because everyone just needs to get an escape for a little bit. Whether you're trying to laugh at like the current political climate, or whether you just need a break from the world, for a few days, for a few minutes, or whether you're dealing with a personal problem, just that laugh is such a cathartic release and gets you through the rest of the day.
I think comedy is like the soul's gateway drug to happiness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or something like that. I should write those things down because I don't remember them.
Yeah. That's a definite keeper for a calendar.
Yeah, something like that.
Dog calendar.
Some kind of comedy addiction calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Comedy addiction, doggy hepatitis calendar.
Yeah. That's right. Circle it back. A little call back there.
Well, we'll do a little bit of after show, and we're talking with Gregg Gethard, and thank you for coming.
Oh yeah,
and we
absolutely
did so much I lost track of time, but we'll cover a little bit more.
Sometimes I'm right and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song. The butcher, a banker, a drummer, and then makes no difference what group I'm in.
Hi, this is Mark Hopkins. We're